You'll be shocked to know that there are some creatures who go deep into the forest at night for spirits to braid their hair. Fasten your seatbelt as I share with you the mysterious tale of Abena. In a small, vibrant village surrounded by lush forests and clear rivers, there lived a young woman named Abena. She was known far and wide for her beauty. But it wasn't just her face that captivated everyone. It was her hair. Abena's braids were immaculate, intricate, and impossibly perfect. Each strand glistened in the sunlight as though woven from silk, and no one ever saw her with her hair undone. Every morning, Abena would step out of her hut with her hair shining like a crown of gold. Her intricate braids drawing admiring looks from everyone in the village. It wasn't long before she became the center of attention, not just among women, but also among the men. Abena's hair was more than a fashion statement. It became her identity. Whenever she walked through the village markets or passed the river bank, conversations would halt. Men would pause in their work, their eyes following her every movement. She's like a goddess, one man said, his voice filled with awe. She doesn't just have hair, another replied. She has magic on her head. Even the women couldn't help but admire her, though their admiration was often tinged with envy. They whispered among themselves, speculating about the secret to her hair's perfection. She must go to a secret hairdresser, one said. Or maybe she has a special oil we don't know about, another suggested. Despite their curiosity, no one could pry the truth from Abena. Whenever anyone asked, she would smile mysteriously and say, Oh, it's nothing. I just take care of it well. Abena's beauty made her the talk of the village, and it also brought her a flood of admirers. Men from all walks of life sought her attention. Farmers would stop plowing their fields to help her carry her water pot from the river. Fishermen would leave their nets to offer her fresh fish at the market. Even the village blacksmith, who rarely left his forge, found excuses to linger near her hut. Abena knew the power of her beauty and used it to her advantage. At the river bank, she would deliberately leave her water pot behind, waiting for a handsome young man to notice and offer to carry it for her. At the market, she would sigh loudly, pretending her basket was too heavy. Like clockwork, a man would appear to help her, hoping for a kind word or a smile. While Abena baked in their attention, the other women in the village grew increasingly jealous. Their boyfriends and husbands, once attentive and loyal, now seemed distracted whenever Abena was around. One of Abena's closest friends, Efua, felt the sting of this change more than anyone. Efua was a hard-working and kind-hearted young woman who had been in a happy relationship with Kwame, the most handsome man in the village. Kwame was tall, strong, and charming, a man every woman admired but knew was devoted to Efua. Or, she thought, Lately, Kwame had become distant. He no longer lingered with Efua at the river bank or helped her with her chores. Instead, she often found him chatting with Abena, his laughter ringing out as they stood too close for comfort. One afternoon, Efua confronted him. Kwame, why have you seemed so distant? She asked, her voice trembling. Kwame looked startled. Distant? I'm not distant, he replied, though his tone lacked conviction. I still love you, Efua. But Efua wasn't convinced. She had seen the way he looked at Abena, the way all the men looked at her. It wasn't fair. What was so special about Abena that even Kwame, who had once adored her, was now slipping away? Determined to uncover Abena's secret, Efua began to observe her friend closely. She watched Abena's every move, hoping to find some clue about how she maintained her perfect hair. At first, there was nothing unusual. Abena went about her day like everyone else, fetching water, tending to a small garden, and chatting with the villagers. But Efua couldn't shake the feeling that there was something Abena wasn't telling. One quiet night, Abena woke up from her sleep, making sure no one was watching. The village was silent, with only the distant chirping of crickets and the occasional hoot of an owl breaking the stillness. She glanced around her heart pounding, and carefully stepped outside. The moonlight cast a silver glow over the village as Abena made her way towards the forest, her bare feet silent against the cool earth. She moved quickly but cautiously, her sharp eyes scanning her surroundings to ensure no one followed her. This was her secret, a ritual she had performed countless times, and she couldn't risk anyone finding out. Once she reached her usual spot, deep in the forest, a secluded clearing surrounded by ancient trees, Abena let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. She sat down on a favorite smooth stone, closed her eyes, and recited an ancient incantation in a melodic, rhythmic tone. Her voice carried through the still night, the words weaving an invisible thread of magic. In response, a smooth breeze stirred the leaves, and a shimmering spirit materialized before her. The being, glowing faintly under the moonlight, had hands of light that moved with an otherworldly grace. Without a word, it began to braid Abena's hair, each motion precise and fluid, as if it had done this countless times before. Each strand of her hair seemed to absorb the moon's glow, shining with a brilliance that made the intricate patterns even more striking. The spirit movement created a memorizing dance of light, and the braids took on a beauty no mortal hands could replicate. When the spirit finished, it hovered for a moment, its translucent form shimmering as if waiting for your approval. Abena smiled and whispered a word of gratitude. Her tone reverent. The spirit faded back into the night, leaving behind an air of serene magic. Satisfied, Abena made her way back to the village, slipping into her hut as quietly as she had left. By morning, her hair would be the talk of the town once again, just as it always was. The next morning, Abena's braids were more stunning than ever, and the attention they gathered from the villagers only grew. Women fawned over her, begging for a secret, while men tripped over themselves to win her favor. Abena bathed in the attention, even as a small part of her felt uneasy. Efua, however, was not ready to let go of her suspicions. She couldn't ignore how Abena always seemed to outshine everyone, especially when it came to her hair. The whispers among the villagers, the way her boyfriend's gaze lingered on Abena, everything pointed to her hair being the source of her allure. Determined to uncover the truth, Efua renewed her efforts to spy on Abena. She resolved to follow her friend every night if she had to. Something about those stunning braids was unnatural, and Efua was certain it was a key to understanding Abena's growing influence over the village. One night, Efua decided to spy on her. As the village slept, she crept to Abena's hut and peered through the small gap in the curtain. Abena lay on her bed, her braids still perfect, her face calm and serene. "She's just asleep," Efua muttered to herself. But Efua wasn't ready to give up. For several nights, she repeated the process, watching Abena's hut for a sign of unusual activity. Finally, on the fifth night, something happened. Efua saw Abena stir from her bed and quietly slip out of her hut. Heart pounding, Efua followed her, carefully to stay hidden in the shadows. Abena walked briskly into the forest, her shawl draped over her shoulders. Efua trailed behind, her curiosity growing with every step. Finally, Abena reached a clearing bath in the moonlight. She sat on a large flat stone and did something Efua could never have imagined. Abena closed her eyes and began to whisper an incantation. Her voice, soft but deliberate, carrying an otherworldly rhythm. The air around her seemed to hum in response as her words grew more melodic. Efua gasped, but she quickly covered her mouth to stifle the sound. She watched in stunned silence as the air shimmered around Abena. A faint glowing figure emerged from the shadows, a spirit with long graceful fingers. The spirit gently took Abena's hair and began to braid it. Its hands, moving with inhuman speed and precision, weaving patterns that no mortal could create. The moonlight seemed to enhance the bizarre scene, making Abena's hair glow like a crown of light. The spirit worked in silence, its movement fluid and deliberate. When the intricate braids were complete, the spirit vanished into the night. Abena opened her eyes, stood up, and walked back to the village as though nothing had happened. Efua stumbled back to her hut, her mind racing. The image of the spirit braiding Abena's hair haunted her. She realized now why Abena's hair was so flawless. It wasn't natural, it was the work of a mystical being. The next day, Efua saw Abena at the river bank, surrounded by admirers as usual. Some of the women praised her hair, asking who has styled it. Oh, I traveled to the next town. Abena lied smoothly, her smile as dazzling as ever. Efua said nothing. She wanted to tell the others what she had seen, but she knew no one would believe her. Instead, she kept the secret to herself, avoiding Abena whenever she could. Though Efua distanced herself, Abena continued to live as she always had, receiving admiration, envy, and attention wherever she went. She was the woman with the perfect hair, the talk of the town, and the object of everyone's fascination. As for Efua, she learned to let go of her jealousy. She realized that some secrets were too strange to share, and some mysteries were better left unsolved. In her heart, she knew she would never look at Abena or her hair the same way again. Though Efua avoided her, Abena began to notice something had changed. The villagers' attention, which once brought her so much joy, now felt hollow. As much as the men adored her and the women envied her, no one truly knew her. Her perfect image had become a mask that separated her from the rest of the village. But there was more troubling Abena than loneliness. Every time the spirit braided her hair, she felt a strange heaviness in her chest, as though the ritual was taking something from her. One night, as Abena sat on her stone in the forest, ready to recite the incantation, she heard a rustling in the bushes. Startled, she quickly opened her eyes, her heart pounding. "Who is there?" she called out. At first, there was silence. Then a voice emerged, a low, gravely whisper. "Abena, do you not remember the deal?" Abena froze. She recognized the voice instantly, though she hadn't heard it in years. It was the voice of Nanaya, the village elder and a feared sorceress. Years ago, as a young girl, Abena had sought out Nanaya in secret. She had been desperate to stand out, to be noticed. The other girls in the village had mocked her for her plain looks and simple hair. "Make me beautiful," Abena had begged. "I want everyone to love me." Nanaya had warned her that beauty came at a price. But Abena, blinded by her desire for admiration, agreed to the elder's terms. Nanaya had cast a spell, granting Abena her perfect hair, but at a cost. Every time the spirit braided her hair, she gave a small piece of her soul to the forest spirit who had granted her wish. "I gave you what you wanted," Nanaya said now, stepping into the clearing. Her eyes glowed faintly in the moonlight, and her voice carried the weight of the forest itself. "But your debt is almost due, child. Soon there'll be nothing left of you." Abena's breath caught in her throat. "No, I don't know." "You knew there would be a price," Nanaya interrupted. "Now you must decide. Will you accept your fate, or will you find another to take your place?" Abena's mind raced. She couldn't lose her soul. But how could she escape the curse? As if reading her thoughts, Nanaya smiled grimly. "You can transfer the curse to another," the elder said. "Someone who desires beauty as much as you once did. But be warned, betrayal comes with its own consequences." Abena's heart sank. She thought of Efua, the only person who had come close to discovering her secret. Though Efua had distanced herself, she still seemed consumed by envy. Perhaps Abena thought Efua might be desperate enough to take her place. The thought weighed heavily on her. Could she really condemn someone else to this fate? Unbeknownst to Abena, Efua had not completely moved on. Though she had tried to avoid her friend, curiosity still burned within her. She had told herself she couldn't return to the forest, but the memory of Abena's strange ritual haunted her dreams. One night, Efua decided she needed answers. She waited until the village was asleep, then crept out of her hut and made her way to the forest. As she approached the clearing, she stopped short. Abena was there, but she wasn't alone. An older woman with an otherworldly presence stood before her. Efua crouched behind a tree, listening intently. "You have 1 week to decide," the old woman said. "Choose wisely." When the elder disappeared into the shadows, Efua stepped forward. "Abena," she called, her voice shaking. Abena wheeled around, her face pale. "Efua, what are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same thing," Efua replied. "What deal have you made?" Abena hesitated, then sighed. "I suppose you deserve the truth." She told Efua everything: the deal with Nanaya, the price of her perfect hair, and the terrible choice she now faced. Efua listened, her anger growing with every word. "So you pass this curse on to someone else? Is that why you've been so distant?" "I don't want to," Abena said desperately. "But what choice do I have?" "You have a choice," Efua snapped. "You wanted to be admired, and now you are paying the price." Abena fell silent, tears streaming down her face. "I was foolish," she admitted. "But I don't want to die. Efua, please help me find another way." Despite her anger, Efua couldn't bring herself to abandon Abena. Together, they decided to confront Nanaya and demand a solution that wouldn't cause another life. The next night, they journeyed to Nanaya's hut. At the edge of the forest, the sorceress was waiting for them, her glowing eyes narrowing as they approached. "You wish to defy the spirits?" she asked. "We want a way to break the curse," Efua said boldly, without passing on to someone else. Nanaya laughed, a sound that sent chills down their spines. "Breaking a deal with the spirits is no small task," she said. "But there is one way, if you are willing to risk everything." "What is it?" Abena asked, her voice trembling. "You must face the spirits themselves," Nanaya replied. "If you can prove that your soul has grown stronger than your vanity, they may release you. But if you fail, they will take more than your soul. They will take your life." Abena looked at Efua, who nodded. "We will face them together," Efua said. The two women prepared themselves for the greatest challenge of their lives, knowing that their bond and their courage could determine their fate. As the night deepened, Nanaya led Abena and Efua to a secluded part of the forest, a place whispered about in village legends but rarely seen. The trees grew closer together, their twisted branches forming unnatural shape. A cold wind blew through the clearing, carrying with it the faint sound of whispers. "This is the threshold," Nanaya said, stopping at the edge of a dark, swirling mist. "Once you step inside, there is no turning back." Abena's heart pounded, but she took a deep breath and nodded. "I will do it." Efua grabbed her arm. "We will do it," she said firmly. Nanaya raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. She chanted softly, and the mist parted, revealing a narrow path. "Follow this," she instructed. "The spirit will test you, but remember, they feed on your fears and regrets. Show them weakness, and they will consume you." Efua and Abena exchanged a glance, then stepped into the mist together. The air grew colder as they walked, and the mist thickened around them. Shapes began to form in the fog, faces, hands, and shadows that moved unnaturally. "Abena," a voice whispered, low and menacing. Abena froze, her breath catching in her throat. She turned her head, and out of the mist emerged a figure that looked like her mother, the woman who had always told her she wasn't good enough. "You were nothing without me," the figure said, its eyes gleaming. "I pushed you to become better, and this is how you repay me? By becoming a selfish, cursed fool?" Abena stepped back, trembling. "No, you are not real," she whispered. "Don't listen to it," Efua shouted, grabbing Abena's hand. "He's just trying to break you." The spirit lunged at Abena, but Efua pulled her away, and they continued down the path. The voices grew louder, more accusatory. "Foolish girl, vain and selfish, you are nothing without your beauty." Abena covered her ears, tears streaming down her face. "I can't do this," she sobbed. "Yes, you can," Efua said, gripping her shoulders. "Look at me, Abena. You are more than your hair, more than your beauty. You are my friend. Remember who you are." Abena took a shaky breath and nodded. She straightened her back and stepped forward, ignoring the voices. The path ended at a glowing pool of water. At its center stood a towering figure made of light and shadow, its form shifting constantly. This was the spirit that held Abena's curse. "Why have you come?" the spirit asked, its voice echoing like thunder. Abena stepped forward, her voice steady despite her fear. "I came to take back what is mine. I made a mistake, but I've learned my lesson. I don't need this curse to define me anymore." The spirit laughed, a sound that sent ripples through the pool. "You think you can undo a deal so easily? Prove to me that you are worthy." The spirit waved its hands, and the pool transformed into a mirror. In its reflection, Abena saw herself as she was before the curse, plain and unremarkable. The figure in the mirror sneered at her. "Without your beauty, no one will notice you," it said. "You will fade into the background, forgotten by everyone." Abena's heart ached. She remembered the loneliness, the teasing, and the longing to be seen. But then she thought of Efua, who had stood by her side despite everything. She thought of the villagers who had admired her not just for her hair, but for her kindness and charm. "I am more than my hair," Abena said firmly. "I am more than my beauty. I don't need your curse anymore." The reflection shattered. and the spirit roared. Lights filled the clearing, blinding Abena and Efua. When the lights faded, Abena found herself back into the clearing with Efua by her side. Her head felt strangely light, and when she reached up to touch her hair, she realized it was no longer in its intricate braids. Instead, it was simple and natural, like it had been before the curse. "You did it," Efua said, smiling. Abena turned to Nanaya, who stood at the edge of the clearing. "The spirits have released you," the elder said. "But remember, child, beauty is not a gift to be taken lightly. You have a second chance. Use it wisely." Abena nodded, tears of gratitude streaming down her face. The next day, Abena returned to the village. Her hair was no longer the talk of the town, but she didn't care. For the first time in years, she felt free, free from the burden of perfection, free to be herself. The villagers noticed the change in her, and though some whispered about her transformation, others admired her newfound confidence and humility. Efua and Abena became closer than ever, their bond strengthened by their shared journey. Together, they showed the village that true beauty came from within, and that no curse, no matter how powerful, could define who they are. The moral lessons we can learn from this story are many, but we will talk about a few. 1. Be careful what you wish for. Abena's desperation to be noticed led her to making a deal without fully understanding the repercussions. This serves as a cautionary tale to think carefully before making decisions, especially those driven by vanity or insecurity. Secondly, vanity and the cost of superficial beauty. Abena's pursuit of beauty came at a steep price. Her soul. This highlights the dangers of placing too much value on appearance and seeking admiration at the expense of one's essence and integrity. True beauty comes from within and cannot be bought or artificially maintained without consequences. Lastly, contentment over comparison. Efua's eventual realization that some mysteries are better left unsolved teaches the value of contentment. Comparing ourselves to others diminishes our happiness and distorts our perspective on life. Thank you for watching. If you like this story, kindly like, subscribe, and share it to others. See you in the next video. Bye.